Today we're in Dobbs Ferry, New York, a lovely community on the Hudson River 20 miles from New York City. It's a town of beautiful homes, a quaint village, and a history that claims that George Washington lived and slept here. I'm not sure about that, but I do know that today's guest, who's one of the most respected and charismatic men in network news, does live and sleep here. He's the anchor of Dateline NBC, which routinely finishes in the top 20 of all primetime shows. He's the Yale honors graduate and football hero, Phillips.
Decides to keep the ball, makes the corner.
He started as an assignment editor at ABC and had to be coaxed into working on camera, and is now one of the most familiar faces on television.
There are some wonderful but shocking stories in this book about a young reporter named Walter Cronkite. Shocking? Are you worried that Marla may want more than her prenup promises?
You know what, the one good thing...
So where does Phil Phillips say he'd like to sit down for our corner table conversation? Well, he told me I want to go to my local diner. So we'll be sitting down at the Dobbs Diner, which has been in operation on this spot since the 1930s. So join me for some diner food with Stone Phillips, dashing journalist who's dodged bullets in pursuit of a story, and once had the President of the United States say to him in the Oval Office, "You should be ashamed of yourself for asking me that question." I bet he wasn't, but let's find out from Stone. And I welcome you to our corner table here at the Dobbs Diner with Mr. Stone Phillips. Stone, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here, but I don't think this is a corner table.
Well, we
kind of out in the middle of the room.
We cheated. You know, it's a, what do they call it? Poetic license, I say.
Fair enough.
Thank you for choosing a diner to sit down.
Well, this is where we eat. This is real food.
But this is a place, you live like 2 minutes from here?
2 minutes from here, and we come here all the time. We bring our son, Streeter, along with my wife, and we sit down, we eat. They know us. We don't even have to look at a menu if we don't want to. They know what we like. And you know what we like. Right?
You're going to have the spaghetti and meatballs. I've got the fruit cup.
You know, even though it's a diner, Bill, I put my napkin in my lap. I put my little...
You put your napkin on your teeth.
I had two
there.
Here we go.
Stone, you actually worked in a restaurant, right? Didn't you?
I worked in a couple of restaurants.
Right. Yeah, out of college?
Out of college.
What did you do? Waiter? Busboy?
Well, actually, when I got out of Yale, philosophy and religious studies major, I actually couldn't get a job as a waiter, so I had to start as a busboy.
That's what Yale can do for us.
That is what Ivy League education, see? Work hard, kids.
I had an Ivy League education. I was a bellhop for a while. But anyway,
yeah.
So you were a busboy to begin with.
I started out as a busboy, and it was a great restaurant in Atlanta, Georgia. And I worked my way up to waiter and made pretty good money. And actually, finally, walked into a television station, told them I thought I could write, and they gave me a writing test, and several weeks later they finally hired me into this business, which is how I got started.
But Stone quickly earned a reputation as an outstanding journalist, and along the way, his good looks landed him on People magazine's Most Beautiful People list.
You know, I want to know who hasn't been on that list. You should have been on that list.
No.
Come on.
But how did you feel about that? Seriously.
Well, I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
No big deal.
It's no big deal, but it's the kind of thing that you just, it's not what I want people to notice.
Well, let's talk about something that is a big deal.
Yeah.
You did some heavy journalism in Beirut. You were in some pretty dicey situations. Why don't you tell us about one or two of the times that you were literally shrapnel and bullets are flying in pursuit of a good story?
Well, it was a great story, and there was obviously a lot of fighting going on. Interestingly enough, being how we're sitting here at the table, I may be one of the few people who can actually say that a buffet spread saved my life. Because one day at the Commodore Hotel in West Beirut, this is in the midst of the summer of 1982 when the fighting was at its height, somebody in the International Press Corps had inadvertently gotten a picture of one of the Palestinian militia groups, the Marabatun, which controlled an area around the Commodore Hotel. They were upset about that because they thought we were all spies.
Right.
And they actually pulled a Jeep with a 50-millimeter machine gun mounted on the back of it right into the lobby of the Commodore, and everybody
checking
in, right? Jeez. And pointed the 50-millimeter at us. I had my plate in my hand, and I dove literally over the buffet table and took cover.
No, that was 82. You're now married, as we just, married to Deborah. A son, settled down. Would you take this kind of risk now as a married man, Stone Phillips?
It'd be very difficult.
Yeah.
I was single at the time. I didn't have a wife or a child to be concerned about. And I think, I'm not sure the network would have come to me,
You had a high-profile interview with George Bush in the Oval Office where you asked George Bush a question about his fidelity at that time.
Right.
And he said, you should be ashamed of yourself for asking me this question in the Oval Office. Two quick things. What does it feel like to have the President of the United States in the Oval Office pointing his finger at you and say, you should be ashamed of yourself, young man?
Well, he didn't come out of his chair, but I think he wanted to.
Yeah.
It was
How'd you
intense.
feel?
It was a very intense moment. I've obviously thought about that interview a lot over the years. It was intense.
Did you feel a little part of you feel afraid with the president? Just a tiny part. I mean, I know you're being a pro.
Seriously, I'm not sure I felt afraid. I was
Embarrassed?
Interested at how he was going to handle it.
Yeah.
I was a little concerned about where it would go. Would he end the interview? I thought maybe he might.
We're in trouble here, sure.
And he would walk off.
Now, in light of what we're going through in the so-called Sexgate scandal, what would you like to, if you could, throw one hardball question at Clinton, what would you like to ask Clinton today?
Well, what did you tell Monica Lewinsky after she had been subpoenaed in the Paula Jones case?
That's the legal question.
I think that's the critical question.
That's what we're looking at. Yes.
The critical question is not so much what happened in that library off the Oval Office. It's what happened once the allegations were out there and he knew that she might be called to testify. Was there an attempt to influence her or to obstruct justice? I think that's the critical question.
That's the key question.
What he would say,
at this point.
Who knows?
And welcome back to our corner table here at the Dobbs Diner with Mr. Meatball and Spaghetti himself, Stone. Don't have to say a word while you're eating. Phillips. I've got the spanakopita, which is the spinach pie.
and it looks pretty good.
Very good.
And the spaghetti and meatballs here is really exceptional. The meatballs here are fabulous. I don't know what they put in them, but they're tender and they're really tasty.
They're
and
Greek
simple.
meatballs.
You don't want to do anything too fancy with a meatball, in my opinion. You just kind of want it basic, and you want it tasty, and you want it fresh. And while I'm talking about all this, let me tell you how I really feel about it.
Meatball talk.
To me, it's all about speed when you go out to eat. You want to get the food fast, and you want to eat it fast. And you want
to get back and hit your deadline.
And you want to get home. That's right.
You're a deadline. So, Stone, you and the family are not particularly, we're going out to Jean-Georges tonight. Let's go to Le Cirque. We got 4 hours for dinner, people. Pretty much a diner, good food at home?
Diner, good food at home. We do some fancy dining, but it's the exception. I mean, we're kind of down home.
Do you have any food obsessions, like something that you just can't keep at home? You like it so much, can't control your appetite when it comes to that one thing?
M&Ms.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
I love M&Ms, and I love Necco wafer candies. Do you know those? People don't even know what they are. But you know what they are, right?
Yes, sure.
What do you mean you haven't had one in a long time?
I haven't had one in a long time.
How can you resist?
Because you've been eating them all. I can't find them.
When I see them, I do buy extra
Mail
rolls.
me a couple, will you?
When Streeter, my son, sees one, he buys one for me because he knows how much I love them. And it's not every place you can find a Necco wafer. It's simple, it's delicious. Same with M&Ms. They're just delicious. In fact, I once ate so many M&Ms on Christmas morning, but I got sick and threw them all up. But hey, enjoy your spinach pie.
That's perfectly all right. You know how I celebrated my 20th birthday once? I'm born in July in Ocean City, New Jersey. I bought myself a half-gallon of Seal Test ice milk.
Oh.
Vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. 20 years old, right? Was working as the bellhop in the hotel and walked all the way from the hotel to my house and ate the entire half-gallon of ice milk while I was walking. That was my birthday gift to myself.
I've got one better than that.
Let's hear it.
When I played Little League Baseball down in Texas before we moved to St. Louis, growing up down there, if we won, my parents would take us to a place called Spud Nuts. Now, these are donuts made from potatoes, not from whatever it is that real donuts are made from. And we get a whole dozen. And they would come hot out of the oven, just dripping with grease. And we'd eat the whole dozen.
If you won. If you lost, if you're in the back room making them.
Then you get 2 dozen.
Now, for the benefit of all of our viewers who are watching, who are single, and they'd like to meet somebody. You know, they've got that hankering to have a nice relationship. You really should tell the story of how you met your wife. It is a wonderful story.
It was a stroke of luck is what it was.
Well, that was to prove that this happens to people.
We were in Hawaii. I had been out there doing a story about the Chaminade basketball team for ABC News at the time, and my wife was coming back from a business trip in the Orient.
You're unknown to be with.
Unknown.
Just coming.
I'm in line to get my ticket, and the Pan Am agent tells me, Mr. Phillips, I've done you a big favor. I've seated you next to the young woman who was 4 or 5 people in front of you in line. Did you see her? And I said, no. He said, well, if you hurry up, you can catch up with her. I've done you a very big favor. I said, no,
so,
thanks,
Ray. Being Stone Phillips, we hurry along to meet her.
Well, I was feeling kind of lousy. I had a cold coming on, and I was kind of coughing and hacking and didn't feel real attractive, if you know what I mean. Caught up with her, pretending not to know that I was going to be seated next to her for the next 10 hours on a flight back from Hawaii to New York. And we walked together, and I asked her if she knows where the lounge is, the Pan Am Lounge. She says, well, yeah, why don't you just come with me, I'll show you. We get there, present our tickets, and the woman at the counter in the lounge says, Mr. and Mrs. Phillips? To which I said, well, not yet, but give me a few minutes. Is that disgusting? And you know what? 6 months later, we were married.
That's in the ozone like that.
It was.
That man, that person at the ticket counter, I hope they're watching and they know that they did this for you.
Well, people said we should have invited them to the wedding, but I didn't know how to find him.
Did you fall in love on the plane flight back? Where you're
I'm sure she did. I'm not sure I did. No. With all my coughing and hacking.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. We started dating and, you know, going to a few restaurants around New York.
Yeah.
And, within a month or so. I mean, I guess. Well, I kind of knew from the outset.
Did you really?
There was just something about her.
There's something. But now, you were a philosophy major at Yale.
Right.
Do you believe in that kind of destiny for people? Do you think that there is an element of serendipity that can enter our lives, that's almost supposed to enter our lives? I mean, suppose, for example, you would decide to stay 12 more hours and take a different flight. Who knows?
Who knows? That's right. Yeah, I absolutely believe in serendipity. I also believe, however, that you have to be open to it and tuned into it, and when opportunities present themselves, you got to seize upon them. And if you wait, if you hesitate, and if you don't follow your instincts,
go for it.
You're gonna lose.
Do you have a personal philosophy of life, something you'd like to share with people that actually helps you deal with being a parent, dealing with being a successful man, something that you live by?
If anything, I guess I would say remembering balance, remembering all things in moderation, a little Aristotle, but mostly balance. My mother always emphasized that with us. Be well-rounded, make sure you get rest, make sure you eat well, make sure there's work, make sure there's play, make sure that everything in your life kind of strikes the right balance.
Stone, you have conducted some award-winning interviews with some very interesting historical and popular figures. So I want to ask you this question in terms of what I call contact, the first 10 seconds. You meet someone, look them in the eye, and shake their hand. The impression that they make on you at that first moment. Boris Yeltsin.
Hi. It was at 35,000 feet in a private jet coming back to coming to the United States for the Summit Talk of Bush show. A little red-faced, very warm and personable.
Total other side of the coin, serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer.
Spooky, eerie.
Handshake, eye contact.
Handshake was like this.
No handshake.
No handshake. Just a limp hand.
Sharon Stone, one of the most beautiful women of her generation, powerful movie star.
Striking and can turn it on like nobody I have ever
Those
met.
high beams?
She can turn the high beams on. I mean, the cameras comes on, and so does Sharon. And it's just amazing. And you could even see it. I mean, the transformation.
And finally, Dennis Rodman, sociologically a very interesting figure.
If you can figure him out. First impressions with Dennis?
First.
Shy.
Shy?
Shy. Very shy. Doesn't want to look you in the eye when he talks to you at first, and then eventually warms up and is genuinely a good-hearted person who's putting on a big show.
He's having fun doing it, for sure. So you were a star quarterback at Yale University.
Well, I was a quarterback.
Yes, you were the starting quarterback, and you were a star, and you were also an honors graduate in philosophy. And I caught a few passes at Penn, University of Pennsylvania, and in high school.
They play football at Penn?
We have a game called football at Penn, so I brought an old game ball here.
Old is not the word for this
What do
game
you
ball.
think of when you take a look at that? What does it make you feel?
You know what it makes me feel?
What?
It makes me feel like I want to go out in the parking lot and throw some passes.
Well, okay. I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to have dessert. We'll take a break. We'll do one of those things where you give me the pattern around 3 cars.
All right.
In the parking lot, and we'll see if we can throw one pass and make 1 catch.
Look at this.
You hold the pen.
You're a good man.
Thank you so much.
Feels good.
Well, let's get to the lot. Come on.